If the rebels succeed in removing Gaddafi from power, it could impact how much you're paying at the pump. Oil prices have been higher since the unrest in Libya began in February. Industry analysts say they expect to see prices drop as early as today. For more this morning, we're joined by Dr. Graham Bannerman from the Middle East Institute. Dr. Bannerman, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Are you surprised that the rebels met such little resistance as they entered Tripoli?
Yes. I mean, there were reports early on that the NATO bombing had degraded the Libyan armed forces to 20% of its capacity, but I tended to discount those and thought they were overstated, but clearly that was the case.
Looking forward, if the rebel army is able to win this 6-month civil war, what happens next?
Well, I think they have won it, and it's a question of there'll be several days of having to clean up things and negotiate with other groups to surrender. But the problem will be setting up a transitional government that is successful.
You mentioned something interesting just now. You said you believe they've already won it. Why?
Well, the armed resistance of the government, the structure has broken down. You'll have pockets resistance, unit resistance, tribal resistance, and maybe even town resistance. But those things can be negotiated and be over. But the capture of Tripoli and controlling the east, the game is over.
And now we're talking about the rebels and this National Transitional Council that's in place to move the country to the next step. Do you believe the rebels can hold the country together?
Well, let's hope so. It's too early to tell, because the problem for the National Transitional Council has been it's always been based in the east, in Cyrenaica, where most of the population was in the west in Tripolitania. And so therefore, will the National Council be able to bridge the gap of the people and bind the country together? And that's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to be difficult, and it's going to take a...
So tell me about this. Are we at the easy part now? Has the hard part been accomplished, and we move over now to this transitional session? What do we run into now?
I think this is the hard part, because you're trying to bind the country back together after a civil war, a country that is based on tribe, on districts, and on towns and family relationships. It's going to be hard to pull all those things together. But there seems to be a lot of goodwill. But at this point, the only thing that has united the opposition is the removal of Gaddafi. Now, with that achieved almost, the next part gets very difficult.
NATO has said that the transition of power needs to be peaceful and immediate. Do you think that'll happen?
Well, what they mean by peaceful and immediate, you have all sorts of problems. It's one thing to go remove the government from authority, but you hope that you don't get into the situation where there's looting and there's revenge killing. You need to hopefully get security forces back on the streets in places like Tripoli and other towns that have changed in order to maintain order and calm, so therefore you can move to the political process.
The U.S. has already told the National Transitional Council in Libya to start preparing for a post-Gaddafi world in Libya. How much of a role is the U.S. going to be playing now in this transition?
It'll be limited. I mean, clearly the United States cares a great deal about Libya. Clearly we have supported the opposition, and clearly the United States supported the NATO actions, but the United States has not been in the lead. Nevertheless, you can see the importance to the United States. The fact that Assistant Secretary Feltman is currently in Benghazi gives you some idea of how important our government looks at the situation there.
The International Criminal Court has confirmed that rebels have detained Gaddafi's son. What happens to him?
Well, that's actually a very interesting question, because clearly the people in Libya want to try him under Libyan law. They don't want to turn him over to the International Court at all. They believe that if Libya is going to have a successful society, they have to have a just society, and trying the people from the former regime who committed crimes needs to be done within Libya.
So what do you think will be his fate?
My hope, and that's at this point we don't know who has him, we don't know what his situation is. My hope that he faces justice. My guess is the Libyans will want to try them in Libya, and that's where he will be tried.
All righty. Dr. Graham Bannerman from the Middle East Institute. Appreciate your insight this morning, Doctor. Thank you.
My pleasure.